So let's talk to James Timms. He's a local resident and someone who I've quite frankly become friends with because we do text quite a lot, and I do like to hear from him what's going on in his community and how people are feeling. James, welcome to the show.
Good evening. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. I mean, how is the community feeling on this really, really dark night?
Well, as you can probably imagine, the messages and the calls that I've had myself, and just the general atmosphere when you're walking around, or you've even been driving around this afternoon or this morning since this happening on Monday evening, it's just shocking. You know, I've been up there personally myself to pay my respects and put some flowers down. You went to the vigil, didn't you? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. It's not quite like what it is this evening. I have found out from other contacts and friends as well that there is a gathering of about 1,500 people up there at the moment. Wow. All lighting candles and putting flowers to pay their respects. But as you can imagine, you know, everybody's in just disarray. You know, this was, as you'd say, probably a long time coming, unfortunately, you know, and this is now the product and the proof in the pudding. Yeah, you make a really good point there. I mean, I think when I was talking to the community, they were just feeling this general sense of just not feeling safe. And we know that the incident happened on a street. We don't know if it's connected yet, by the way, but we know that it happened on a street where there was a HMO, which it was a house of multiple occupancy. We also know that this happened to someone who was a resident on that same street. Yeah. I mean, when you want to do a basic thing like go and walk your dog at night, are you now having to think twice? I don't walk my dog out late in the evenings at all anymore. I'm an owner of a French bulldog, and she's as happy as Larry, and I take her out all the time. But no, I've now restricted the times that I take her out in the evening because I just don't want to put myself at risk. And I should imagine that's the same for a lot of people that have dogs, given that this gentleman was minding his own business. An altercation between this gentleman and somebody else has come up, and unfortunately the first person that came into sight of view was this poor gentleman. And now this is, like I said, you know, this is the proof in the pudding that the problem in the borough and elsewhere is just getting worse. And it's not just limited to women and children now. You know, they're now, you know, they don't care who they attack. Yeah, well, you make a really good point there, because a witness has told that the victim of the stabbing was very well known around the area. That was given to the Daily Mail, and it said the knifeman was chasing a man and a boy around the road, and a local man who was with his dog tried to stop it. So quite frankly, a hero. And another local told the outlet he is a lovely guy. He was very gentle and peaceful. I mean, that's just heartbreaking. He was trying to help, and it's ended up costing him his life. Wow. Ben James, who was another witness who was there, said, I've got a family member who lives at the top of this road where the incident happened. There was a lot of screaming and shouting, and that's all she heard. As she came up there were piles of blood, and I saw two people on the floor, and there was a tent up as well. So the guy that the Afghan who was allegedly involved in this, the suspect, didn't have any wounds. I know that there was medical attention at the scene brought towards him. I mean, this is a community in complete disarray. I want to bring Robert Bates into this, director at the Centre for Migration Control. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, James can't even go and walk his dog at night in this community. I do know, yes, they are on the front lines of this. They've got massive 3 migrant hotels and I think 9 HMOs, if I'm not correct, within the area. Probably at least that. Right. And it has really tarnished the fabric of this town.
Yeah, and I think the fact that there's, you know, 1,500 people out tonight at a vigil really shows just how far-reaching such acts are when it comes to having an actual profound impact on how people view their community and how they view their day-to-day lives. on the streets. You know, 9 HMOs is you know, housing would-be illegal migrants. I think really is just the tip of the iceberg. Probably in Hillingdon, I'd imagine that there is far more than that are going under the radar. And then what you see in London across the board is just landlords, unscrupulous landlords, really being allowed by local councils to effectively just convert houses, sometimes even without the proper planning permission, just to accommodate these individuals. I think unfortunately far too much has been sort of given leeway-wise when it comes to how this is dealt with on a non-national level, on a local level. And what you really see actually is a lot of this stuff is just happening now completely unaided, completely sort of not being vetted, not being controlled. People are just being left to fend for themselves, really. You know, the police force in London really is overwhelmed as it is. We could really do without this extra imposition of thousands of individuals that, you know, seem, again, allegedly like they just want to come and cause harm and cause evil on the streets of London.
No, that's so
totally
true.
Agree.
Yeah, sorry, James, anything to say to that?
No. At the end of the day, I mean, this is the I mean, probably I say the second stabbing within weeks, but I mean, obviously this Afghan migrant has stabbed multiple people on Monday. So, you know, just prior to
obviously that's all alleged. I don't have a statement about that particular incident. But yes, yeah. Sorry, go on, James.
But this is you know, this is the second occasion where we've had a stabbing within the borough. We had a local taxi man a few weeks back that had been picking up some passengers at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then they jumped out of the cab after having an argument with the driver, and then proceeded to stab him 6 times.
James, if you don't mind me asking, have you been sort of on some of the protests previously against the situation in Hillingdon?
Yes, I have. I had helped organise the
James, one of the main organisers actually. That's that's
not worthy.
For the 18th of August. Yeah.
So
I actually work quite closely with Wendy as well now. We've sort of brought our contacts and, you know, brought everything that we can bring to the table together to really get ourselves out there, and especially for our next march as well, which is going to be in remembrance of, you know, the people that got us to where we are here today. So we will be putting that out as our Remembrance Sunday march to promote, you know, the people that are not here anymore, you know, the soldiers that have given their lives for where we are today and our freedom of speech and everything else. So, you know, we're proud to be British, and we would love for everyone to come and show their respect for our fallen loved ones. And, you know, we're not going anywhere, you know, and this is just absolutely disgraceful what this has happened, and this just proves that something's got to change. It really does.
Well, I think that's very important, the reassertion of sort of what makes a community and what makes Britain actually in the face of such a awful thing is just to kind of, you know, reassert and make sure that those binds aren't being completely eroded by actually this evil that is being put in our midst by hapless governments and councils. I think it's really important to, almost effectively, we're going to have to take it into our own hands to make sure that this country survives on some kind of civic level and start doing these things, such as yourself. You know, you see up in Wirral the cancelling Remembrance Sunday parades. It feels like basically the only people keeping Britain alive and keeping it functioning is the people at this point that are organising on a grassroots
level. You know
what?
I think this is why it's so important now that we have had controversy in regards to the date that we're doing our Remembrance Sunday walk, obviously given that it is on the Remembrance Sunday. But we are still allowing people to take their time at 11 o'clock to pay their respects to their family members. But we're also going to do that ourselves, you know, so we'd like to invite everyone to come down at 12 o'clock, 12:30 down to Mulberry Parade, where we will do a walk down to the West Drayton Cemetery, where they have a war memorial there, and we will do a 2-minute silence as respect to all of our downed soldiers and fellow soldiers that are currently serving now as well. And then we will go on to where one of the hotels is, the Crown Plaza Hotel, and we will get up on the grass verge there, and we will get our voices heard. You know, we're promoting anyone that has fallen loved ones, family that was in the war that have given their lives, and even people now that are serving. Come down, bring pictures of your family members, show your respect. And I think this is now a massive time to actually do this and show that, you know, we're not going to be forgotten. These people are not going to be forgotten for what they've done for us. And this is, we've given everything that's happened. This is absolutely vital.
I agree. It is that sort of glimmer of hope when you do see these vigils being prepared, the community coming together. I know that when I was on one of those marches in West Drayton in Hillingdon, it was really that sense of community is something that you just don't get, especially where I live over in London. I mean, you don't even know the neighbour you're living next door to in these central cities. So it was actually lovely to see a community come together. You know, there was a bouncy castle, there were kids. It was actually just sort of, you know, a community that was concerned for their safety, but trying to band together and fight for what they actually believed in. So I agree with you. I mean, these marches, they're peaceful. You keep them peaceful. I've seen you working very hard to do that, because obviously there's a lot of emotions going on. But do you think that with this, I mean, it's almost a silly question at this point, but are tensions very heightened now going into that?
Yeah. Yeah, well, a lot of people are obviously concerned, and you know, this has just raised people's fears even more. You know, and this is why I think more than anything now, we need to raise attention to this, and we need to get people to open their eyes and say, you know, look, enough's enough. Our local schools are surrounded by these migrant-run hotels. We've got local HMOs constantly growing within the area. And it's just not fair to the people that are having to normalise this behaviour. It really isn't. So, you know, yes, I think as terrible situation as it is, now is a time to really put our foot down and get our voices out there.
Well, back to this current horrendous stab horror. You know, we've got one man dead. We've got another in a bad condition, thankfully not life-threatening, and a 45-year-old man also badly hurt with life-changing injuries. What would your message be to Keir Starmer, who, weirdly, yes, is our current Prime Minister, but doesn't seem to be giving a toss about the migrant crisis at the moment? I mean, just last week we saw that his one-in, one-out scheme, which was all about returning migrants back to France, one of them had actually made it back into the country because they do like the 4-star hotels. Now, by the way, I'm not talking about this current Afghan migrant case, but I am just talking about the migrant context in a wider way, because we are talking about those hotels that surround your current area, and that's what's mainly making people feel unsafe. So what would your message be to Keir Starmer right now?
You know, I'd love for Keir Starmer to just take a step back from his current situation, from where he lives, and put himself in our community. Put yourself in any community that is surrounded. Put your family there, and tell us that you feel safe to have your child playing around outside. You feel safe to let your child walk up to the shops on their own and back. Because I know damn right he would never do that. We need Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, if you're listening to this or you see this, seriously, you really have to wake up. The country is going to end up in civil war, and something has to be done. You've got to start listening to the people of this country. You really have.
Wow, I mean, very strong words, and you're right in the eye of the storm there, James. Robert, would you have anything to say to that? Would you echo the sentiment of James right now? I mean, that community, they've had enough.
Yeah, but listening to James and listening to Wendy, you know, I do think there is a sort of a glimmer of hope in this, in that sort of communities that are being put upon so egregiously by the government and by this crisis are really starting to find a collective voice and a collective identity, and actually starting to really get back in touch with one another and really sort of reassert actually what they are proud about with their local community. And, you know, identities and strong identities often are unfortunately forged in the face of adversary, and it really does feel like most communities around the country at the moment are facing real adversarial conditions.
Yes.
And I think you look across the country, these Pink Lady protests in the north as well, people peacefully, almost in a sort of jolly spirit, protesting against asylum hotels. I think there is something in that I think actually the grassroots and ordinary people across this country, something is clicked in them as a result of this crisis, and they've actually started to get a real sense of civic pride and that desire to push back against what's been imposed on us for far too long.
No, that's so true.
Totally
I
agree.
do agree, and when I was at that march, I did feel that sense of community, as I said, and it's something so rare these days. So I agree with you. There is that slight chink in the curtain there.
It's very much a silver lining of a cloud. It would be much better if the situation wasn't happening.
Yes, but I agree. Let's not let something like this divide the community. I think it should unite the community. And you know, I've been on those protests, and they're very diverse. They're a diverse group of people who just want the best for their community. It's nothing about race. It's nothing about, you know, what people will have you believe. It's just about people feeling safe. Or at least that was my understanding of what was going on.
That's exactly what we're going for. You know, we want people to be able to feel safe going out their front door, to let their kids play in the front gardens, or, you know, for your grandmother or your grandfather to be able to go down to the shops with their Zimmer frame, or even if they're in a disability motor or a mobility car or anything like that, you know, just to be able to go out and not have that fear that the person walking towards you could be a rapist, could be a paedophile, could be a complete undocumented serial killer. And this is what we are having to normalise on our streets. So no, enough is enough. You know, we have got to get it out there that we need everybody to wake up, everybody to pull ranks and just show that, you know, enough is enough. Hillingdon says no. Every borough, every county should be saying the same, that we've all had enough.
If this doesn't make the government wake up, I mean, if someone who is dead doesn't make the government wake up, I don't know what will, genuinely. But good luck with your march. I hope I can make it out there.
Thank you,
James.
yeah, we'd love to see you down there.
Thank you, and keep doing what you're doing, because it's all very much in the name of safety for the community, something that clearly doesn't exist for West Drayton at the moment, and Uxbridge and that whole community there.